A very good afternoon to all the participants attending this talk and ASSI for inviting me for this lecture. I am Dr. Varun Kumar Agarwal, Associate Professor of Orthopedics, Rohilkhand Medical College and Hospital, Bareilly. When we talk about osteoporotic vertebral compression fractures, we should all remember that it is the kyphotic deformity and not the acute back pain which accounts for all the long-term consequences. These osteoporotic fractures leads to back pain, spinal deformity, decreased lung capacity, impaired function, loss of appetite, decreased activity, increased fracture risk, increased lung problems, comorbidities, and up to 23% increased mortality. And this is the downward spiral associated with these fractures. Kyphosis shifts the center of gravity anteriorly, and this increases the stress on the anterior part of the vertebral body, leading to more kyphosis. There are adverse mechanical effects of kyphosis, such as increased vertebral body stress, increased facet stress. All these increases the back pain, and there is decreased thoracic space, decreased abdominal space. There is shifting of the center of gravity. There is a compensatory stance. All these leads to a deformed and impaired pulmonary function. The patients who suffer the vertebral osteoporotic compression fractures have an increased mortality risk as high as twice that of the normal population in that age group. So when we talk about basic principles of any fracture management, the first principle is fracture reduction even before fracture fixation. Vertebroplasty is fracture fixation, whereas kyphoplasty is fracture reduction followed by a fracture fixation. The balloon in a kyphoplasty acts as an enclosed space in which pressure is being applied per unit area, which generates a force correcting the deformity. So in summary, the compacted bone is forced outward into the pore spaces. The inflatable balloon tamp inflation displaces and compacts the cancellous bone. Cancellous bone stiffens and moves as a mass, transferring force to the surrounding cortex. The cortex then moves back to its normal configuration, increasing the height, and the end plates become more parallel. So before we move on to the procedure, we should know how to select a good candidate for kyphoplasty. The patient who tends to respond best are those who have 1 to 3 levels of fracture. There is a focal pain and tenderness corresponding to the level of edema on MRI. The fracture is present for less than 2 months. There is a recent worsening of fracture and there is no sclerosis of the fractured vertebra. A poor candidate is the one who has fracture for more than 1 year. There are other causes for back pain such as a disc herniation or a spinal stenosis or facet or sacroiliac joint disease. There is a radicular pain related to a disc herniation. All these are poor candidates for kyphoplasty. So these are the instruments and how to set the table for the procedure. We use 13 gauge bone biopsy needles and we use Luer lock syringes so that we can have a good fixation of the syringe to the needle and there is no leakage of any substance. We do the process under IV sedation or local anesthesia in which we use 1% lignocaine with adrenaline and 0.5% bupivacaine on the bone. General anesthesia is rarely required. So the main advantage of local anesthesia is that it allows the surgeon to communicate with the patient and to determine the cement injection speed, anticipate any corrective measures that need to be done and abort the procedure if any problem is happening on the table. While the local anesthetic is acting, we give an injection of antibiotic along with painkillers and Perinom preoperatively. And personally, I prefer to use a nasal cannula as I find an awake patient is more acceptable of a nasal cannula than an oxygen mask and it provides a sensation of comfort to the patient. The patient is monitored and IV lines are established. There is continuous intraoperative monitoring with ECG and oxygen saturation, and always remember not to treat this as a casual OPD procedure. So this is how the patient in the room is set up. The patient is to be placed in extension using radiolucent surgical tables or even bolsters can. The patient is placed prone with padded rolls and the lower legs are also padded to remove pressure from the fracture and to prevent any sores. Make sure that the patient is lying comfortably and squared up on the table. And prior to the skin incision, always check that your fluoroscopy is adequate and you can visualize all the bones properly and the symptomatic vertebral body level is visualized. And please be aware of any deformity and obesity. The patient is prepared with meticulous sterile technique. One should not treat it as a casual OPD procedure and follow all the sterile precautions as in a normal surgery. Then coming on to radiographic images and its interpretation. So this is the true AP image in which the pedicles in the upper half of the vertebral body, the spinous process is equidistant between the pedicles and the end plates are parallel to each other. So similarly, a true lateral view is needed in which the pedicles are superimposed on each other and the end plates are parallel. So this is a short video of the procedure. So this is a case of a 75-year-old lady with pain in the back and bedridden for 4 months with an osteoporotic compression fracture at L1 level. So local anesthesia is given and a Jamshedi needle is inserted. The pedicle is targeted under AP view and it is slowly advanced after confirming in the lateral view. The needle is again advanced to be in the body. And once it is placed in the body, then we remove the stylet and place a guide wire and exchange this Jamshedi needle with the working cannula. You can gently tap the guide wire so that it doesn't displaces. And now we remove the Jamshedi needle. Carefully, not to displace the guide wire. You can hold the guide wire with the help of a forceps. And then the procedure is repeated on the opposite side. Local anesthetic is again given. And the Jamshedi needle is first placed in the AP view and then confirmed in the lateral view. And when you have adequately cannulated the pedicle, you can again put in a guide wire and exchange the Jamshedi needle for the working cannula. So you can aspirate the edematous fluid in the fracture cavity, which is seen on the MRI, which confirms that the needle has been placed in the correct position inside the vertebral body. And you can send it for biopsy or culture. Another tip is to inject the normal saline in one needle and it comes out of the other needle, which confirms that both the needles are in the correct position inside the vertebral body. And then you can just aspirate this normal saline to make the cavity dry again. So next is to inject radio-opaque dye to confirm whether there is any leakage or not, and if the dye is well contained inside the vertebral body, one can be reasonably sure that the cement is not going to leak. And you can confirm this both in the AP and the lateral view. Then the balloon tamp is readied for insertion. You fill the inflation device with the normal saline mixed with the radio-opaque dye to make the balloon visible during the procedure. So we load the balloon inflation device with normal saline mixed with the dye. Then remove all the air bubbles. Then insert the balloon catheter through the working channel inside the vertebral body. The inflation device is attached to it. And then slowly the balloon is inflated and the height of the vertebral body is restored. So as we inflate the balloon, the height of the vertebral body gets restored. And we can do this gradually, slowly and under control. Then the balloon is deflated and withdrawn. The procedure can be repeated on the opposite side, or one can use two balloons simultaneously through both the Jamshedi needles. And again, gradually and slowly inflate the balloon to restore the vertebral body height. You can do this under intermittent or continuous fluoroscopy. And then remove the balloon catheter. The cement is then injected using a cement filler device through the working channel. This allows a controlled delivery of cement, and you can do it under live or intermittent fluoroscopy again and see how your vertebral body is getting filled up with the cement. And there is no leakage, and at that point you can stop. Try to fill the vertebral body from anterior to posterior in a gradual manner. And to prevent any leakage, go gradually towards the posterior side. The final confirmation can be done in the AP and in the lateral views, and shows adequate filling up of the cement in the vertebral body after adequate height restoration. These are the final check x-rays, and the patient is mobilized the next day of the procedure. And you can see how comfortably she is out of the bed and walking. Initially with the help of a walker to give her confidence, and then as tolerated, the walker can be discontinued. To economize the usage of cement and use the same packet of cement in multiple vertebrae, one can take out the cement powder in a 50 ml syringe and the liquid monomer in another 20 ml syringe, so that we have 1 ml liquid for every 2 milligram of the powder. And then the video shows how to mix it. So in this video, I have taken out the powder in a 50 ml syringe and empty around 20 milligram of that powder at one time in a bowl. So this allows us to be very precise in the measurements. And a 20 milligram of powder is emptied into the bowl, and the rest is set aside to use subsequently in another vertebra if it is needed. So you can set aside the powder for a subsequent procedure on the next vertebra. And accordingly, the required amount of the monomer is poured inside and then mixed. So in this way, the same packet can be used for multiple levels. Operatively, the needle site is dressed and there is strict bed rest for 2 to 3 hours with monitoring of the vital signs, and a neurological examination is done. The patient is discharged 3 hours after the procedure, and follow up is done on the next day, 1 week, 1 month, and 6 months after the procedure, and it can also be done over the telephone. So my protocol for these osteoporotic compression fractures is I do it in cases less than 6 weeks old who need to be hospitalized, or there is a failure of conservative treatment after 3 months. I choose vertebroplasty for all, except when the middle column is involved. I tend to go in for kyphoplasty, where I need to increase the vertebral body height. So vertebroplasty, it is quicker and cheaper, but kyphoplasty, although it is expensive and takes longer, it restores the vertebral height. There is less chances of adjacent fractures. There's less cement leakage, and there is an increase in quality of life more in kyphoplasty than in vertebroplasty. However, both of these procedures must be treated with the respect, as its application without appropriate preparation and physician knowledge can quickly produce increased pain, permanent neurological injury, and even death. So, always treat these procedures with respect and due precautions, which we take for all surgical procedures. Thanks a lot for a patient hearing.